What happens when Mephisto's quest to capture the soul daggers ends up ensnaring Spider-Man's greatest foe? Well, let's hop into the pages of Bring On the Bad Guys Green Goblin issue number 1 and find out what happens next together, shall we? Well then, so this issue surprises me right out of the gate, mainly because it ends up actually calling back to a piece of continuity that we first saw in Nick Spencer's Spider-Man run. If you don't remember, basically at some point in the past, Norman Osborn had made a deal with Mephisto in exchange for success, and all it cost him was the soul of his son Harry. But as we learn in this issue, in classic Mephisto fashion, there was actually a second part to this devil's deal. Mainly, not only did Norman have to give up the soul of his son, but also he would be required to take the life of an innocent man, even though up until this point Norman had only been a piece of shit businessman, but not a straight up and down killer. And why yes, the weapon of choice that Mephisto has chosen for Norman to carry out this murderous task just so happens to be one of those soul daggers. Though Norman himself clearly seems to have no idea as to the actual importance of these magical artifacts. Now from there we flash forward to the future. Norman's work as a CEO at Oscorp is slowly but surely starting to pay off dividends, but in the back of his mind he can just not seem to shake the voice of the Green Goblin clawing at the inside of his mind. Again, the implication being, was Norman always crazy and would always have become the Green Goblin? Or did Mephisto, via his evil machinations, actually do a little bit to edge Norman in the right direction? Mephisto has a sense of humor too, as the next time he ends up appearing to Norman, he does so as his childhood dog, the same one that Norman killed as a child. Hey, nice attention to detail and continuity on this one, Guggenheim. Mephisto says that now it's officially time to pay the piper, and that he wants Norman to murder a man who works for him, a man by the name of Alan, a brilliant scientist with a loving family. And again, even though it's not directly stated, someone who probably has a connection to those who made the Soul Forge. Norman's actually been putting the finishing touches on his brand new Green Goblin costume and gear, and he figures this would probably be an excellent opportunity to field test all of this stuff before he uses it on Spider-Man. Green Goblin stalks Dr. Allen back to his home and watches him through a window. It's here the story ends up taking a really interesting turn. You see, Norman actually hesitates in his murderous intent. He sees Dr. Allen with his family. He sees that he is indeed a loving husband with a supportive wife and 2 children who absolutely adore him. Basically the kind of life Norman never had himself growing up, and the sort of life that he could never give his own son Harry. Though, hey, even though Norman gets stuck in his feelings for a second, it still doesn't mean he's not gonna do what he came here to do. In a very creepy set of panels, we actually get to see through the Green Goblin's eyes as he enters the house and creeps his way to Dr. Allen's office like this was a frickin' slasher movie or something. Green Goblin takes this opportunity to turn on the dramatics and cut a villainous monologue right to Allen's face. Though, again, it's made abundantly clear that Green Goblin is early in his career, and because of that hasn't actually figured out the whole being a supervillain thing yet, meaning Dr. Allen just kinda hoofs him in the nuts and jumps out a window. Pretty damn embarrassing, wouldn't you agree? Well, if the Green Goblin wasn't going to kill him before, he certainly is now. Gobby manages to hog-tie Dr. Allen with some rope, and we actually get what looks to be a very early version of that classic image of him doing the very same thing to Spider-Man. Dr. Allen begs for his life in complete confusion as to what exactly he possibly could have done to invite this sort of brutal fate unto himself. But Green Goblin is very short on answers, as right now he is merely serving a much bigger, much more evil force than himself. Norman does the dirty deed, but later, for what might very well be the first time ever, we see him actually live with a little bit of regret. Well, Norman clearly regrets what he's doing, but the Green Goblin who lives inside his head is absolutely overjoyed. This is clearly the beginning of the rest of his life. Norman's business starts thriving all over again as his madness only continues to grow and grow. Now, believe it or not, that's actually where the main story ends, but we're actually treated to a fun little backup story that gives us the origin of Sister Sorrow, the brand new original Guggenheim villain who we saw back in the Doctor Doom book, and who seems to be tying this whole thing together with Mephisto. As we learned, before she was known as Sister Sorrow, she was actually a human who actually went by the name Sorana. Also, did I mention she just so happens to live in medieval Latveria? No wonder Doom liked this lady. Oh, but the similarities between her and Doom don't stop there. Not only is Soriana and her family Romanese, but when her father is arrested for dissonance and put to death, She ends up making a dark magical pact in an attempt to save his life. She prays all night in hopes that any god listening could hear her cries. And in the end, it's none other than Mephisto who heeds her call. Which, man, you know, between this and the end of a certain TV show, Mephisto has been having a really good couple weeks, hasn't he? And so that was Bring On the Bad Guys, Green Goblin issue number 1, everybody, and I gotta say, going into this one, I didn't know what to expect. This whole Bring On the Bad Guys series actually has a really interesting kind of pacing and storytelling method. Basically, it's a series of one-and-done standalone character pieces that also end up feeding into a much bigger story involving Mephisto, Doctor Doom, and this mysterious Soul Forge. I don't know if I would personally have put this story together like this. It feels like that someone is bound to eventually just pick up one issue because they like the villain in question, and be totally lost by all these different little allusions and connective tissues, or at the very least not get the full breadth of the story that's being told here. But for what it's worth, I actually did like this standalone tale. I like how the writers in this one, Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan, actually do a good job picking and choosing a lot of different Norman character stuff from across Marvel history, then boiling it all down into this fun little soup that doesn't really contradict anything that came before. I think the thing that really sells it for me is this moment that Norman Osborn makes this jump from regular everyday CEO bad guy to full-blown supervillain. For what it's worth too, I think they also do a really good job making you care about this Dr. Allen guy, even though you know full well he's not going to make it to the end of the story. This one's maybe not as good as the Doctor Doom one, but still I had a very good time with it, which is why I would give it a 7.5 out of 10, and I'm definitely interested to see what they bring to Abomination in the next part of this collection. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow, and you know, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye bye.